We are going to be in John, the 16th chapter. It's going to be a very important section of John. And the reason I know it's really important is because these are the last words that Jesus is going to give to his disciples. His last words. He knows that in a few hours he's going to be hanging on a cross. Then in a few hours he's going to be dead. Within a few hours his disciples are going to be scattered abroad. So what he's going to be saying has to be important. So let's listen carefully as we read John, the 16th chapter, and we'll begin in verse 23 and go through verse 33. It says, "In that day you will not question me about anything. Truly, truly, I say to you, if you ask the Father for anything in my name, he will give it to you. Until now you have asked for nothing in my name. Ask and you will receive, so that your joy may be made full. These things I have spoken to you in figurative language. An hour is coming when I will no longer speak to you in figurative language, but will tell you plainly of the Father. In that day you will ask in my name, and I do not say to you that I will request of the Father on your behalf, for the Father himself loves you, because you have loved me and have believed that I came forth from the Father. I came forth from the Father and have come into the world. I am leaving the world again and going to the Father." His disciples said, "Lo, now you're speaking plainly and are not using a figure of speech. Now we know that you know all things and have no need for anyone to question you. By this we believe that you came from God." Jesus answered them, "Do you now believe? Behold, an hour is coming and has already come for you to be scattered, each to his own home, and to leave me alone. And yet I'm not alone, because the Father is with me. These things I have spoken to you, so that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take courage. I have overcome the world." There are a lot of moving parts in this section. But basically what he's saying is he's offering them comfort and assurance. That's what we need, comfort and assurance. And that's what he's trying to offer them. He's giving them comfort and assurance. He's giving them what we all really need. And we're going to see that as we move along through that. The first thing he says is there's going to be clarity. Verses 23 through 26, there's going to be clarity. This has been a section full of confusion and full of questions. Ever since they've gone up into the upper room, there have been question after question. Where are you going? Chapter 13, verse 36. How can we know the way? Chapter 14, verse 5. Show us the Father, 14:8. What is it? What do you mean by a little while? 16:18. In 16:12, Jesus said, "I have many more things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now." There's no New Testament yet. The resurrection hasn't happened. The baptism of the Holy Spirit is still off in the future. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of questions that he has. And Jesus said, well, there's going to be some clarity. I'm not going to use figures any longer for you. No more parables. The idea of figures and parables. And the interesting thing is, in the Gospel of John, there are no parables. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. There are no parables in the Gospel of John. In the Gospel of Matthew, there's 15 parables. Mark gives 9. Luke has over 35 parables. But John has none. But what John has done is he's used a lot of figures of speech. He's used these metaphors. He's used these images over and over. Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd. I am the bread of life. I am the living water. I'm the light of the world. I'm the door. I'm the true vine. I'm the way and the truth and life." And he gives us all these images and all these figures of speech. That's not going to happen any longer. And the interesting thing is, when you get over to the rest of the New Testament, you find these figures of speech dropping out. We don't see figures. We don't see parables any longer. That's pretty straightforward, pretty well plainly speaking to us. Faith. We're going to have a clarity of faith. And that's important, that we have a clarity of faith. Faith that is built on evidence, but it's also built on our experiences, and it's built on reality. Faith. Faith is so important. And he's saying, well, you can talk directly to God. That's what's going to happen. You haven't been able to do this yet, but you're going to be able to speak directly to God. And we know when Jesus died, that veil in the temple was torn from top to bottom, which let us know that we can now enter into the Holy of Holy Places. And the Hebrew writer, in his sermon, he spends all this effort trying to tell us we got access into the Holy of Holies now. We can go directly to God. And this is so different from other religions, so different from Judaism, where you have to go through the priest and offer through the priest. So different than even Catholicism, where you have to go through Mary. We can go directly to God because of what Jesus has done. And so he's setting this up. He says, we're going to have clarity. You're going to have faith. And you're going to know that you can go right to God. You have someone you can trust in. Isn't that what we need? Someone who we can trust in. Someone who will not fail us. Someone who will be there for us. Someone that we can believe in. Someone who won't run. Someone who won't give up on us. Someone who's strong when we're weak. We're going to have faith with clarity. And then verse 28, he gives the gospel in one sentence. I came forth from the Father and have come into the world. I am leaving the world again and going to the Father. There's the gospel right there, one sentence. I have come from my Father. I've always existed. Jesus didn't start living when he was born as a human. He has always existed. I came from my Father. I came to the world. I'm leaving the world. I'm going back to my Father. That's the gospel right there. That's the story. You know, Jesus is trying to give us all these truth claims. This is what Christianity is all about. People ask us that. What is Christianity about? What do you guys teach? And there's a thing called a self-serving bias. I don't know if you ever heard the term self-serving bias. And we see ourselves as smarter than anyone else. Now, that's what a self-serving bias. We're smarter than anyone else. In fact, they tell us that the surveys have shown that 80% of Americans think they're in the top 10 to 15 percentile of things. Now try to think about that. 80% think they're in the top 10%. It doesn't work mathematically. But practically, there's somebody in your row who thinks he's smarter than the rest of you. He's more intelligent than the rest of you. He's more socially capable than the rest of you. He's better looking, or she's better looking than the rest of you. See, 80% have this self-serving bias that we are the center of everything and everything radiates from that. So what we'll have is these people ask us, well, what's Christianity about? What does Christianity teach about same-sex marriage? What does Christianity teach about sex outside of marriage? What does Christianity teach about war? And what they're saying is, well, if it agrees with me, then I'll accept it. Truth is where I'm at. It's a self-serving bias that they have. And so no wonder we have so much problems in our world when 80% of the people think we're smarter than everybody else. And what Jesus is saying, there is a faith, a truth, a reality, and it's going to be clear to you. I'm going to give it to you. And it's not for us, it's not up for debate. It's not up for us to say, well, okay, all right, I think maybe. It's for us to accept in faith. And so here's the clarity. Christianity is going to be based on Jesus. A Jesus that he came from the Father, he came to the world. And that he left the world and went back to the Father. That's Christianity right there. That's the gospel in one sentence. So there's going to be a clarity of faith. And then he moves on. And secondly, he says, ask and God will answer. Ask whatever you will and God will answer. The Father will listen and he will answer. Well, why? Why will he do that? Because he loves you. That's what Jesus says, because he loves you. He says, it's not just because of me, it's because of the Father. He loves you. Notice here, he says in verse 27, for the Father himself loves you because you've loved me and have believed that I came forth from the Father. The Father loves you because you have loved me. The thing that's kind of interesting about this word love here is we're familiar with the word agape, right? By now, everybody pretty well knows what the word agape means. It's not agape here. When he says the Father loves us, he phileos. The word phileo. Now we think about agape as being that it's the highest form of love. It is the greatest form of love, and it's that unconditional goodwill. It is devotion to us. But when he uses phileo here, he brings that up to even a higher level. It's this familiar love. It's this family love. It's this friendship love, this deep affection. And in the original, it's clear that this is going to continue on. It's a continuous love. It's a love here. This is a tremendous love. Somebody who loves you. Somebody who knows everything about you and still loves you anyway. Isn't that what we all need? Somebody who's so devoted in their love for us that they're going to forgive us. They're going to forgive us of our pettiness and our fault finding and our littleness. They're going to be there for us. Someone that is consumed with our well-being. And he says, so the Father is going to hear you, and he's going to answer you. Ask in my name. He's going to ask in his name. Asking in Jesus' name is not a ritual. It's not something we add at the end of our prayers in Jesus' name. You ask with my purpose. You're on a mission from me. You do it because this is what Jesus wants. This is what I want, he says, and he'll do it for you. And then the third thing here, the third movement in this whole thing, verses 29 through 31, you'll have peace. Jesus is going to bring us peace. You'll have peace. After he said, I came forth from the Father, verse 29, his disciples said, lo, now you're speaking plainly and you're not using a figure of speech. Now we know that you know all things and have no need for anyone to ask you. By this we believe that you came from God. And Jesus answered them, do you now believe? The NIV puts an exclamation mark after that. It's an affirmation. Oh, now you believe. You got it. But I don't think that's what's going on here at all. Almost every translation puts a question mark after that. I think Jesus is using a little sarcasm here. Now you believe. Now you believe. Have you ever tried to bluff your way through something? I mean, that's what these disciples are doing. They're just bluffing their way through. Oh, we got it now. We got it now. A Canadian news team went on the street to ask him about one of their ministry cabinet members. And his name was Darcy McGee. And they were going to ask him about that. The one thing they didn't mention was that Darcy McGee died in 1868. And they were asking about Darcy McGee, and someone said, oh, he's the worst we've ever had. He's just terrible. He's pretty good for a liberal. And others would say, oh, well, he's not that. At least he's not as bad as so-and-so. And there was just a handful that said, we don't know who that is. We're not even sure who you're talking about. The rest just bluff their way through. Oh, yeah, I know this. I do this too. I have to confess. I bluff my way through some things. I have something called my long-lost cousin routine. Some of you know about this. As I've gotten older, and especially after the stroke I've had several years ago, but I have a hard time remembering people. It used to be I have a hard time remembering their names. Now I just can't remember anything. And someone will come up at the mall or at the store, and they'll go, Ron, how are you? And my long-lost cousin routine, I'm fine, how have you been? And I'm hugging them and loving them. I'm thinking, who is this? And I'm going through this Rolodex in my mind. Did I do their wedding? Did I do a funeral in their family? Did I do marriage counseling for this person? Is this someone I baptized? Is this someone I played racquetball with? Who is this person? And I'm just hoping for a clue. And invariably they'll say, we're still together. You married us so long ago. It's been 24 years now. Our kids just started college. George, he's so upset the kids are gone now. Oh, come on, Nancy. You're just as upset as I am. It's George and Nancy. I did their wedding. Oh, good. It's so good to see him. So glad you're doing well. We bluff our way through things. I have a friend, he's really OCD. And man, you better tell him that you know what he's talking about, because he's going to explain everything. You know where the flux capacitor hits onto the main frame? No. Oh, you know where that is. It's the main frame. You know where the flange comes and narrows down, and there's that capacitor there that hits the spark. Oh, yeah, I know where that is. Because you better bluff your way through. And that's what the disciples seem to do, bluffing their way through here. But you can only bluff your way so far. And so Jesus says, behold, an hour is coming and has already come, for you'll be scattered, each to his own home, and leave me alone. And yet I'm not alone, because the Father's with me. These things I've spoken to you, so that in me you may have peace. In the world you'll have tribulation, but take courage, I've overcome the world. You're going to be scattered. You're going to be scattered because of a lack of faith. That's why fear comes. We lack faith and we have fear, and you're going to be afraid, and you're going to go home, and you're going to hide in your homes, and you're going to be isolated. So often we feel deficient in our faith, and so we pretend everything's going good. How are you doing? I'm fine. Everything's great. I got it all together. You know, every once in a while somebody will call me on that. You liar. You know you're not doing that good. I know you're not doing good. You know, Proverbs calls the wicked flee. You know, the wicked flee. The wicked flee when no one's pursuing them. You know, that faith is just not always what it should be, and we know that we're not the people we are wanting to project to everybody else that we are. And he said, look, there's going to be a time when you guys are going to be scattered. That's what happens. They are going to be scattered. There's going to be tribulation, but he offers them something. He offers them peace, but you're going to have peace. Tribulation, the word tribulation there means pressure, affliction, distress. You are going to be crushed, he tells these disciples. You're going to be crushed. The world is going to hate you. It's not going to be upset with you. It's not going to resent you. It's going to hate you. You're going to be kicked out of the synagogue. Now, the synagogue is the center of life in these Jewish communities. You're kicked out of the synagogue and you've lost your friends. Most likely you've lost your business. You've lost everything. You're going to be kicked out of the synagogue. They're going to kill you and think they're doing God a favor. Now, we've already read these things in the text. He's already told them these things. This is what's going to happen to you. And how are you to respond when all this happens? He says, well, take courage. Take courage. It almost sounds like a little bit of a pep talk. When I tell you that, you know, I put my arms around you and say, hey, just hang in there. What else am I supposed to say? You're just giving somebody a pep talk. How do you have power? How do you have peace when you have no power, I guess I should say. How do you have peace when you have no power over your circumstances? Well, take courage. You have someone in your corner who's overcome every circumstance. And that's what he's saying. Well, take courage. I've overcome the world. Romans, the 5th chapter, he says, therefore, having been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we also have obtained our introduction by faith into this grace in which we stand, and we celebrate in hope in the glory of God. Not only this, but we also celebrate in our tribulations, knowing that tribulation brings about perseverance. See the big picture, he's saying. I've overcome the world. You're going to have tribulation. You're going to have pressure. You're going to have distress, but take courage. I've overcome all that. What he's doing is offering them hope. You can't have life without hope. He's giving them hope. Hope is a confident expectation that things are going to work out the way we want them to, the way that God expects them to do. And that's going to give us this peace. Now, when we think about peace, we sometimes think about inner peace. And if you Google peace, they add a little word. They'll always add inner onto it, inner peace. And so you'll have places on how to breathe. Go through these breathing exercises. Go through this meditations. Set some boundaries. I need to cut some of you folks out. You know, here's how you have peace. And you'll have inner peace. Jesus is not talking about inner peace. It doesn't come from the inside. It comes from Jesus. It comes from having that confidence that he has overcome everything and we have hope. We have a confident expectation that it will all work out all right. And we need that kind of hope. We need someone who knows where we're going. We need someone who knows what they're doing. Someone who can tell us what's happening next. Someone who has a plan. Someone who will give us directions when we ask him. Someone who knows that the future is secure. And that's what Jesus is telling us that we have. So we have these three things. Three things. There will be clarity. We can ask and God will answer, and we will have peace. Jesus is trying to offer them comfort and assurance here. Now, there's something else that I mentioned each time, but I hope you caught it. Did you notice something here, what we have? We have this great triad of faith, love, and hope. Faith, love, and hope. We usually say faith, hope, and love. But that's what he's saying we have. And don't ever underestimate the power of these Christian virtues. They're mentioned over and over in 1 Corinthians 13, 1 Thessalonians 1:3, Romans 5, 1 Peter 1. This triad, if you read carefully, and every time you see the word faith, look around and say, okay, I know hope and love is hiding here somewhere in the text. Or if you find the word hope, you can look around. I know that faith and love is here somewhere. Either the same for love. Because the triad is mentioned so often together, we read right over it. But this is what he's offering us. He says, we have faith. You're going to have faith. You're going to have love. And you're going to have hope. Don't underestimate these. And the result of these, he mentions at the beginning and the end, joy and peace. He says, so that your joy might be made full, verse 24, and at the end, that in me you may have peace. What more did you want than that? Have joy in your life and have peace. We have faith and we have this love and we have this hope. We have comfort and assurance. We have one who will never, ever, ever desert us or leave us. He has overcome the world. And when he's overcome the world, he's not overcome the planet. He's overcome all evil, the world system, the world that is ruled by Satan. He says, take courage. And the word take courage is not a suggestion, it's a command. Take courage. Stand up straight and know that you're going to get through it. Recognize the faith that you should have. Recognize the love that you should have. Recognize the hope that is all yours. Recognize these things, and then you'll have joy and peace. God is so good.